Well, I'm going to say good afternoon. Do I have that right? Or is it the time zone? It's still good
Yeah,
morning.
it's 11 a.m., but here nor there on the
Okay. Well,
cusp.
good
Yeah.
morning. Congratulations on that.
Thanks,
So,
man.
how long has that been done for?
That's a good question. It's been finished, I would say finished since about January of this year.
Sure.
Maybe December of last year, around there. And then, after working on a book for that long comes the fun part of trying to shop it, So
For sure.
I feel very happy that I landed with Jawbone Press out of London. They've been really awesome to work with, and I love the look and feel of their books and their aesthetic. So it's been a good fit so far. But yeah, I would say the book itself has been done since late last year, most likely.
A follow-up question to that, because you did your homework in getting multiple generations of comics to, some of them friends, some of them just people you reached out to, presumably.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
how did you know it was done?
That's a very good question also. I had to call it done at a certain point,
Hmm.
because it's the type of thing that can go forever. You start thinking about, well, I'd love to talk to this person, or wow, well, what if maybe this person really needs to be in there.
Yeah.
And there's still plenty of people like that I would have loved to have spoken with. Uh, a few that come to mind that I'm kind of either friends of or directly, know a little bit are Jim Jeffries. I would have loved to have had Jim in there, but he's always in Jakarta on tour. He's always like somewhere exotic and far away. And David Cross is another one. Sean Patton's a buddy of mine who's his touring feature, and I've met David a few times, and obviously the Mr. Show connection and stuff was strong, and so I would have loved to have
Yeah.
spoken to David, but the time just didn't work out, and just scheduling is nuts. Janine Garofalo is another one who I've worked with before, who I would have loved to have had in there. Um, but it just becomes a certain level of, all right, well, am I going to wait another few months to see if I can possibly finagle the schedules? And another big thing is the majority of these books took place late 2021, early 2022, when COVID was happening still, and a lot of people were home.
Yeah.
And I don't need to tell you that once things opened up again in a safe and realistic way to start touring, everybody's like, I need to get back to this immediately, as quickly and as safely as I can. So by 2022, everyone with schedules were starting to get back to what they, if not what they were before COVID, some semblance of normalcy,
Right.
and so cue towards the end of last year, 2024, everyone's real busy. So it was really just a matter of having to call it done, because I knew it could kind of drag forever if I just kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit more each time, with people I would have liked to have had in there. And there's some that don't appear in the book, but they're mentioned because they're such people like David Tell is someone who comes up a lot.
Hmm.
Jane Garofalo comes up a lot. Um, and so I would have loved to have gotten their perspective, but it just at a certain point I just had to say enough, because it could go forever. And it's a big book as it is. It's
It is.
155,000 words, and so I also didn't want it to be like belabored, and like people look at it and get intimidated and go, "That's too much for me to even try." I didn't want that.
Well, unsolicited advice here. You could always do the 10th anniversary thing where you get the people finally combining it with what you already had, combined with whatever trends have appeared since there in the towards the end of the book, when I think it was Tom Rhodes is saying, I always record stuff at the Comedy Store. When you update that to go, I always record at the mothership, or I
Right,
always
or whatever.
used to record at the mothership.
Right. Yeah, all are possible choose your own adventures 10 years from now, who knows, right? But yeah, I think that's a great point, because uh one of my biggest inspirations for this book is an oral history called Please Kill Me by Legs
Oh yeah,
McNeil.
Legs McNeil. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing oral history of punk rock, CBGB's movement. And they did that, I think either the 10 or even maybe the 20 year, they did a new edition with added bonus interviews and
Yeah.
added insights. And so, yeah, I mean, I hope in a decade there's still as much interest around the book to do that. I'd love to do that.
And
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's
And
a good idea.
to rudely interrupt you again, it's good to see contributions from fellow punk rock comic overlapper Joe Sib in
I love
there.
Joe. Yeah, Joe and I worked together a bunch. When Joe was running his California Calling one man show, growing up punk rock, and across the West Coast, I was his opening act for that. Back, man, 2011, something like that, 2010, 2011. And Joe and I met at Punk Rock Bowling out in Vegas, and
Hmm.
we kind of curated the comedy at that for a few years, the two of us. tag team that. And I know Joe is headed over to Europe right now to do a month at the Fringe Festival, Edinburgh. So
Wow.
Joe's doing great things. We keep threatening to work with each other again, but our schedules are zany, and so we've been playing phone tag. But I'm hoping to do more shows with Joe in the future.
It's incredible how far he's come that
Hmm.
some people know that he's the side one dummy guy, but no one knows he's the guy from Wax or 22
Hmm.
Jacks.
Yeah, not as many. I mean, if you're uh, my buddy Zach, who's the guitarist from Rise Against and formerly of Guar, Zach always called Joe the ambassador of California. He's the unofficial mayor of California or whatever. Like he's just through and through Cali, and so I'm always pleasantly surprised how many people know Joe, and I think he'd love this as a comic now. Oh, Joe Sid the comedian, as opposed and Cy One Dummy is pretty high profile too, even though he doesn't have anything to do with the label anymore. But but I still meet plenty of people that know him as the guy from 20 from Wax. They're like, oh, that cool video with the guy on fire. Like uh, Joe's a huge personality, and so he knows everybody. It feels like.
Okay, we can agree no one knows him as a magician.
I didn't even know that. Yeah, the 10-year-old starting as a magician in a pizza shop getting ripped off for less
That's
pizza than promised is a great intro to Hollywood.
that's awesome. But back to you. So there's this book, which again you show to the camera so that the algorithm picks it up.
Sure.
And then I know about your one of a kind action figures, which is
Oh,
great,
cool,
and you're
man.
actually on the road, etc. What are you? Is there an easy way to say what you are? Because some people go, I'm a comic, but yeah, you do other stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I do think I'm a comic, but that's a good question because, well, I've always drawn. I don't want to say inspiration, but I have that DIY blood. I've always been a Fugazi Black Flag guy from very early on, and people like Henry Rollins were hugely influential to me, like his spoken word stuff and just being
Yeah.
multi-tiered. Like he fronted bands and he wrote books and he put them out himself, and his spoken word could be very dark at times and almost confrontational, but also incredibly funny, and that's
Yeah.
increased. I think he's a natural storyteller, and my onstage material tends to lean long form and kind of storyish as well. So, but yeah, I don't know. You could argue I'm a workaholic. Like I certainly have a work ethic that sometimes to others can appear unhealthy, maybe, because I like if it's work that I'm passionate about, it doesn't feel like work, right? So, like writing this book was an incredible undertaking of time and effort
Hmm.
and an insane amount of work. But like, if it's work, you're working towards an end of like, I have this thing now forever, like this moment in time, this kind of document. I really like that, and it's the same with the action figure art. It's like if I get an idea, it comes in waves. It's not like I sit down and go, okay, Tuesday I'm working on art, Wednesday I'm writing books, Thursday
Hmm.
I mean, I have to do that with touring. Like I leave today for 3 weeks of road work. Um, with Eddie Pepitone and Brian Posehn and other friends.
Hmm.
But that has to be scheduled, obviously. And writing a book takes discipline of like, okay, I'm
Yes.
home from tour. I'm going to sit down and do this now. Um, but the toys and writing material and stuff like that, it kind of comes when it comes. I'll get the inspiration for something and be like, I feel like working on toys today. I'm going to do that. And so it's really just different hats. I guess. Um, and I've got producer blood, so running my comedy festival, Altercation Festival, like I just started sending out invitations and stuff today, and I have to announce the festival next month and put tickets on sale. So there's certainly a lot of juggling, but if I tried to wear them all at once, it'd be too much. It's just too many plates spinning at one time,
Yeah.
and that's really unhealthy. Also, it can really lead you to burnout. And so I try to just kind of shift gears depending on where I'm at. Like when I hit the road for tour, today's the last day of press because I don't bring my laptop with me, because if I bring my laptop, I'm going to work on other things and I want to be in show mode. I don't want to have that because I know me too well that I'd rather sit down and just read a book on the beach or something when I have a day off. If
Hmm.
I have my laptop, I'm going to inevitably do other work and try and to be productive in a way that my brain says do something, create, and
Sure.
so I try to put kind of air quotes healthy boundaries around it. But to answer your question though, I don't know. I mean, it's yeah, multi-tiered, I guess is just multi-tiered creative. I don't know.
Well, I want to come back to that in a second, but there's
Sure.
a great quote that you had from Patton Oswalt in there that in '93 he made $11,000 that year in
Yeah.
stand-up. And you know, a banker would go, "That's horrifying. You were on
Hmm.
food stamps." And a comic would go, "Wow, I made that much doing things on my own terms. I'm
Absolutely.
set. Life is going to be good." Did you have a particular year where that happened for you, where an embarrassing amount of money to the average person to you was like, "Oh, I can do this"?
I mean, I would say every year since I started, and of course, I've had day jobs along the way. You know,
Sure.
I did uh, content creation and online SEO marketing and stuff for many years for some big well-known websites and stuff. But I left that in 2014 to go full time, and that was arguably financially probably my leanest year. But I also was like, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it for real. I probably did 150 shows that year.
Hmm.
You know, I really hit it hard. Um, Now, I don't know if I could do that now, just physicality wise. Like the travel takes a lot out of you, and
Yes.
as I'm creeping in my 40s, my knees start to hurt. You know, and so
Do you
uh,
make the noise when you get up off the couch, even if you're not in pain?
yeah. Kyle Kinane has a great bit about that where he
Yeah.
says, "Now I stand up and it sounds like popcorn, like is ready." He's just like all my joints just go "Brrrah." like
Yeah.
so. But to answer your question, yeah, it's been about a decade more or less since I've been. And again, the toys make a little bit of income, and the book, and those things contribute to me being able to get by. But there's certainly planning, and you have to. One of the things when I left my air quotes, corporate job was you just have to live a little smaller and just say, okay, I'm not gonna, I stopped buying action figures and stuff like that. I just, you just have to shrink proportionately and decide what's more important. And for a lot of people too, I never begrudge anyone. They say, "Oh, I'd love to go full time, but I have this job and I like the security of it." I'm like, good. Like if that makes sense for you, then by all means, because it's a hard road. You're essentially freelance, and much like I guess an actor would be, like you're employed until you're not, and then you're on the hunt for your next employment. And it's like,
Hmm.
the last several weeks I've been around pretty much doing press and some toy work and stuff and getting the comedy festival set and all this other stuff, but I've been off the road, and so I haven't been getting paid to do stand up or selling merch on the road or any of those ways that I typically make money. And so you have moments where you're like, all right, this is feeling scary now. Like it's starting to feel like financial quicksand. Like things are getting like I need work. But then, yes, I say within the last few days, I've booked, I don't know, 3 additional weekends I didn't expect, which is a dozen new shows.
Hmm.
And I'm talking to Lydia Lunch about doing another tour together. We worked together last year for a 2 week run, and that's we're trying to do something in the fall now for that. And so that it's like I try not to stress too much if it feels like, oh, I've got holes in my calendar, because inevitably things will come about. And if they don't, then I'll just shift gears and make the toy art or freelance writing or whatever I need to do.
Maturity, smart maturity. That
I,
sounds like.
I mean, part of it comes with age. Like I said, I'm in my 40s, and so
Hmm.
when I didn't start comedy till I was 32. I was late
Hmm.
to the game, and I was doing other things. I was in bands and promoting shows and running a zine and doing radio all through my 20s. And so, when you're in your 20s, though, having been in bands at that time, like as Rollins says, you can survive on a Snickers bar and hatred for a while. You can really just do 2 hours of sleep and sleep on the floors and all those sort of punk rock things that inform who you should become. I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. But I also look back on my first couple of years of grinding and go, wow, I could not do that now. I just not that I couldn't, I would choose not to.
You would choose not.
I would choose not to. I was just I don't love it that much to sleep on a floor where I'm going to get bitten by fleas and then, you know, have to sink $400 into a car that's not even mine because the gear shift crapped out on us in the middle of nowhere. I would get on a plane and go home, I think.
So, going back to what I was saying with touring with Posehn and all that, that's great. I believe there's a Cine Winery New York City show in a
Yeah,
week or two, which is
and Philly.
fantastic.
Hmm.
And Philly, when you tour with other comics,
Yeah.
do you guys, I genuinely don't know this. Wrestlers ride together. Do comics ride together and spend the day together, or do they only see each other 15 minutes before doors open?
It's case by case, but the guys that I work with the most, like so for example, there's people that I work with sometimes who I'm buddies with, like Jackie Cation. I just did a weekend with her in Denver. I love Jackie. Um, Lydia, I've opened for Rollins once or twice, and
Hmm.
some people like that. But that's the type of thing. Like with Jackie, like we would get together and maybe get something to eat after the show and hang out at the show. But during the day, we kind of left each other to our own devices. Pepitone and I, our our sensibilities are very strong. So we're very very tight, good friends because we're both New Yorkers, and so
Hmm.
we're fluent in that East Coast vibe. We just gel, and so Eddie and I will we certainly meet up somewhere, rent a car, and drive around together. And I do the driving, and he plays DJ, and we hang out together a lot. But also, there's like a syncopation to, all right, we get to the hotel, we both want to nap before the show, then we get refreshed, we do the go into show mode, do the show, then we'll go get dinner somewhere late and stay up until we pass out. With Posehn, it's largely like that too, where Brian and I love horror movies. We'll go to the movies together and see, we went and saw um like a midnight movie after the shows and stuff. Like we love that type of thing. We love going to record stores, like, and so Brian and I really nerd out comic book stores, obviously Posehn, how do you not go to the comic book store in every city when you're with Posehn? And
Yeah.
so we really bond over that stuff, like Pepitone doesn't know metal at all, but we both love the Rolling Stones and listen to Little Steven's Underground Garage. Posehn and I will blast. We went and saw Obituary rehearsed in Tampa because we could,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
it's very different worlds, but I love them both. And so to answer your question though, also touring with someone, even if you're friends, is hard. It's
Yes.
you're together a lot, and you have to strike that balance between, okay, this is my buddy, but we're also working together, so you have to be in professional mode at the show, whatever that means. But you have to do the job,
Hmm.
and you could be together, for a while. You need to know when to shut up. You need to know when to just be relaxed and just drive and quiet and listen to music and let people nap or zone out or whatever. And that a lot of people, especially comedians, don't know how to not be on. I very much know how to not be on. I can very much just also want to chill. And
Hmm.
so I think that lends itself to why I work so well with some of those folks,
Well,
specifically Eddie and Posehn.
what you just told me totally jibes in a good way with the book that you wrote, because
Mhm,
Jackie is not from the same scene at all as Henry
mhm.
Rollins
Not at
or
all.
Eddie Pepitone. I mean, Eddie and Jackie might have some
Mm,
overlap, but
sure.
totally different world than Posehn, who,
Mhm,
besides the sitcoms, the comedians of comedy was
mhm,
kind of his ascent. So here you are kind of between all the different scenes. In other words,
mhm.
you're like the guy in high school who wasn't on the football team, but was cool with them, and wasn't in the drama club, but was cool with them, etc. So the
That's
question,
who I was in high school. That's exactly who I was in high school also.
oh, I
I
same here, but the
like I
question
yeah, anyway.
tying that in is, when did you kind of realize that it was going to be okay by not being one thing, but rather by being adaptable? Because a lot of people tell you you're going to fail if you're adaptable and not, rooted in one particular set.
Sure. Sure. I mean, there's a portion in the book where actually Ron Babcock gets that advice from Patton Oswalt, where he says, for your first few years, try everything, but then after 5 years, narrow it down because otherwise
Mhm.
you're going to be spread too thin. And there's definitely wisdom to that. But I don't think I chose that. I think it's just a matter of I all right. So in high school, you go to the guidance counselor and they say, all right, what do you want your career to be? I want to be
Yep.
a lawyer. I want to be a scientist. I want to be a teacher. I was always like, I don't want to do one thing and that's it for my life. I don't want to be just this. And you see people do that and they're very happy. I was a factory worker for 30 years and here's my watch and my retirement and boy am I comfortable. Awesome, good for you. But I got panic attacks thinking about like I'm just going to be this thing, this
Yeah.
one thing. I don't want to do that. I want to do a whole thing. I want to do try a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe I'm not good at it all. Maybe I fall on my face on some of it, but that's okay. And then I know I said, well, I tried that. I mean, there's a you could argue there's a big ego ego launch of saying, I'm going to write a book. You know, I've written 3 by this point, and so I know the work that goes into them. But everybody I think wants to write a book. The reality of
Yes,
doing it is
doing
very,
it. Yep.
very different. And then having anyone care. I know lots of people, well, not lots, but I have friends who have done fiction and stuff, and they have their core audience and stuff. But it's never going to be necessarily a Stephen King level, and that's okay. But there's also like there's no guarantee of audience. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so anything in the creative realm is a bit of a dice roll. You're putting yourself out there. There's no guarantee of anyone liking or responding to it. I always say, the second worst thing anybody can yell at you at a show is you suck. The first worst thing is they can say nothing and give you no feedback and just be silently hating it. That's worse. That's worse. Not that either are good, and not that I strive for either, but like, you know, uh, I feel like all these kind of careers, uh, they're kind of self-editing in that if it's not going well, you're going to know real quickly. If I'm making these action figures and no one's buying them, no one's buying them, and that's just how it is, man. If you're doing shows and no one's showing up, no one. What are you going to yell at the sky? So um, yeah, I think it's less though me saying I need to be multi-tiered and I need to have a plan that I can da da da, and me just naturally wanting to try a bunch of different things creatively and saying, well, between all this stuff, I think I can live, you know, and again, it comes down to what's important to you. I I'm not making what Patton made his first year there. I'm doing a little better than that, but it's also very much I'm don't have a lot of disposable income. You have to live a little smaller. But to me, the trade-off of not having a boss aside from myself is well worth it.
Well said. Well, I'm going to say congratulations again on this.
Thanks,
Looking
man.
forward to the upcoming tour dates, the action figures, wherever we're going to see you. Thank you for being a unique individual and looking forward to what's to come, JT.
I really appreciate that, Darren. Thanks so much for having me on. And yeah, jtcomedy.com has all the links to all the stuff. And yeah, I hope people dig the book. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It means a lot when fellow people that understand comedy, and especially when they have a punk rock background, kind of get it. So I can tell you get it. So thank you for that, man.
Paltrocast.